Good afternoon, everyone. It's about 2 minutes after, so we will go ahead and get started. My name is Johnny Perez. I am the FTF Director here at Valley of the Sun United Way, and I'll be taking you through this training. Also on the meeting this afternoon are Julio Rodriguez, our Fiscal Monitoring Manager, and Maria Bird, one of our Fiscal Monitoring Coordinators. Both are available to answer any questions that you may have throughout via the chat. Currently, everybody is muted, but we'll also unmute at the end should you prefer to ask your question over video. But again, we'll go ahead and get started. So this is our agenda for this afternoon. In part one, we're going to cover some changes that we've made to the family qualification tool. There are not too many differences. However, there are some slight ones that we want to point out. We've updated the federal poverty levels to reflect the new federal poverty levels for fiscal year 22. We've also updated some of our income types and then the relationship to child selections. In part two of our presentation, we're just going to review family qualification in general. We know for some of you, you've had a pause in qualifying just due to the ongoing pandemic, so we will review that criteria. We'll go over a few example qualifications, and I'll show you the updated family qualification tool. I'll also show you how to duplicate child records for any children that are continuing on your program from this year to next year, and also how to submit inquiries via the portal. In part three, we will go over some important dates you'll want to keep track of for the new fiscal year beginning July 1st, as well, including when to expect your allocation notification from First Things First, when to expect training invites for our annual training, as well as when to expect to begin your renewal application for next year. And then finally, as I mentioned, you can ask questions throughout. However, we will unmute at the end if you'd prefer to ask any questions you might have over video. So our first topic is the family qualification tool. As I mentioned, it has been updated for state fiscal year 22. Actually, that update took place the last week of April, so it is available to you now. If you are a 12-month program, July is open as a month for you to qualify children as of. If you're a 10-month program, August is also now available to begin qualifying children for next school year. For the family qualification tool, what we've done is we've updated the federal poverty levels. Those do increase slightly. And if you've used the tool before, you know that it tells you the income for the family and whether or not they are eligible or ineligible based on that final income. So we did have to update those income cutoffs. Additionally, we've condensed the list of relationship to child options in that dropdown. Specifically, we removed sibling claims child as a dependent on taxes. We just found with this option that there aren't truly many siblings that are the head of their household claiming everybody as dependents, but people were selecting this option just to add a regular sibling into the home. And when you pick this option, because it says claims child, it thinks they're a head of household, and so it wants to prompt for income, leading participants to not know what to enter there for these younger siblings that aren't actually working and are not a head of household. So we've just removed it. Sibling is still there as an option. And then if you were in a scenario where one of your applying children's siblings was the head of household claiming everybody else, you can just select additional family member claims. And you can also use that option for grandparents that are the head of household, aunts or uncles, anything of that nature. Additionally, we've updated some of the wording, specifically on additions to the home that you want to add using a birth certificate, making it clear that we can only accept birth certificates for children that are not on a tax return just because they were born after the tax year or adopted after that tax or public assistance filing. So you just making it clear that you can't use birth certificates to add anybody to the home. It would only be for siblings born or adopted after the tax or public assistance filing. We've also updated some of our income types, specifically for employer letter. We've updated that to cover employer contracts as well. And we've added annual as a pay frequency there, just because we do know some of you have several teachers that are receiving scholarships and they receive an annual contract with their gross income. Now, as opposed to dividing that by 12 and entering it as a monthly rate, you can just enter that annual salary. We've added Social Security as an unearned income type, and then we've also updated unemployment and other income types to include the option of annual as well, if there are other benefits that the family is receiving on an annual basis. So that covers the updates made to the tool, and again, I will show those to you in just a minute. But I did want to go over family qualification in general and just remind you that as the participant, you are responsible for qualifying families based on the criteria set forth by Valley of the Sun United Way and First Things First. And the next couple slides are just going to go over all of the required documents that all of your family applications should include, starting with the state fiscal year 22 family application. With this, some things that we did want to point out are that it's really important that you pay attention to page 1. Probably the first thing you'll want to do as you begin receiving applications is make sure that any family members that your applying parents or guardians have listed on page 1 corresponds to whatever they've submitted as their proof of household size. Many of the fiscal monitoring findings that we identify are because family members have either added dependents or other members to the home that are not on these tax or public assistance documents, or they've excluded people. So they didn't include mom on the front page of the application, but mom is on the tax return. And then we have to start asking questions about what is the custody situation? Do they have a formal agreement? And all sorts of things. So I would definitely recommend step 1 of any application is to make sure that whoever they have listed as family members on page 1 corresponds to whatever they've provided as their household size documentation. Also important on page 1 is to look for a valid Arizona zip code, a family contact phone number, and an email address. All of this information has to be entered into the family qualification tool. So you do need this information from the application in order to save that qualification record. Also important with the application is just to ensure that pages 7 to 9 are completed accurately. This is the statement of lawful presence and eligibility to receive benefits. And a lot of times families will fill out these pages incorrectly. So we'll go through it when we go through our examples. But you do want to make sure that they are filling out all pages of the application accurately. Next, for your required documents are proof of lawful presence and age. Applying children must be lawfully present in the US and be between the ages of 0 to 5, not yet eligible for kindergarten. We define children as kindergarten eligible if they have turned 5 before September 1st, and it is now after September 1st. So for this upcoming state fiscal year, children born August 31st, 2016 or earlier can participate in July and August. However, as of September 1st, they would no longer be eligible for the scholarship because we would consider them eligible for kindergarten. Even if they're not opting to go to kindergarten, we unfortunately wouldn't be able to provide them with a scholarship after that date just because they do have that kindergarten option available to them. Also important with lawful presence and age is just keep in mind that the only documents that we can accept are going to be listed on page 10 of the family application, and that does not include hospital birth certificates or social security cards. I imagine probably about 90% of your families will submit their birth certificate. Do make sure that it's the state issued copy issued by Vital Records. It cannot be the one that they receive in the hospital that has like the little handprints or footprints on them. We can't take those, unfortunately. It does have to be issued by the state if that's the route they're going. Next, for your required documents, all families need to provide proof of household size, and it should be one of these 2 options. First, they may provide page 1 of their 2020 tax form with listed dependents. For this, we're not looking at any income on these taxes. We don't use these to verify taxes. We're just looking to see who's filing, so who is our head of household, and then who they have claimed as dependents, and again, making sure all those names match up to page 1 of the family application and that the applying child is included. If families would like, they may also provide a DES public assistance letter. This option is nice because if it's complete, meaning it has been issued within the last 12 months, it includes all household members, and it includes a monthly gross income, we can use this to verify household size and income. So at that point, your families would not be required to provide any other documentation aside from the family application and then the child's legal residency document. So acceptable letters would be issued by Access, Cash Assistance, or Nutrition Assistance. And again, they should include all pages, include all family members, a monthly gross income, and be dated within the last 12 months of their application. Something to note is that if the documents listed above do not accurately reflect the family situation, so they've since been divorced, they've since gotten married, they've had a new child, any of those things that may have affected their household size since filing these documents, the family may provide amendments in the form of custody agreements, divorce decrees, adoption paperwork, anything of that nature. However, do keep in mind, these documents may only be used as an addition to a tax return or a public assistance letter and cannot be used as standalone eligibility documents. So really important, all of your applications should have either that tax form 1040 or a DES public assistance approval or denial letter as the base of their application, and then they can definitely amend it from there. However, they need at least at a minimum one of those options to determine household size. Your final eligibility document is proof of income. We require proof of income for each contributing member. We define a contributing member as a parent or guardian living in the same home. Also, anybody who has claimed the child as a dependent on his or her taxes. We would also count a boyfriend or girlfriend living in the same home if they share another biological child in common with the applying parent or guardian. For proof of income, we will accept one or more of the following for each contributing member. Again, if your families are receiving DES public assistance, so Access, Cash Assistance, or Nutrition Assistance, we can take the monthly gross income amount listed on any of those approval or denial letters, as long as it includes all family members and it's dated within the last 12 months. Again, these are really nice because they prove household size and income. So moving forward, you would only need that lawful presence document and the family application filled out. If families are not receiving public assistance, we would accept one current consecutive month worth of pay stubs, keeping in mind with these that we do want to look for a gross income on those pay stubs, and they do have to be actual pay stubs. We can't take like bank statements showing deposits of pay stubs because those would obviously reflect the net income. It does have to be the actual pay stub that shows all their pay descriptions and that gross amount, and they must be current and consecutive. If your families are not receiving pay stubs, they can't locate them, they haven't been working long enough to have a month's worth, we would accept an employer letter. It should be on company letterhead and include gross annual income or the hourly rate, average hours worked, and pay frequency for that contributing member. Teaching contracts would fall under this as well. If you have any parents working for a school district, we can take their annual contract as well, as long as it has the contract dates and the gross annual income for the year. If you have any self-employed families, we will take their tax form 1040 with applicable forms. Most often that will be a Schedule C or CEZ. In addition to those tax records, though, we would need monthly ledgers for the 3 most current months that verify income and expenses, as well as receipts for those expenses. So with self-employment, sometimes there's some confusion. We do ask for the tax records. However, the income that we're looking at is actually going to come from those monthly ledgers for the 3 most recent months. This is the only instance where we will look at net income. And because of that, for anything that they've listed as an expense on that ledger, we will need a corresponding receipt in order to deduct for that expense. If they don't have a receipt, we will not deduct those expenses. Finally, if you have any unemployed parents, we would accept a no income declaration form. That's available to you on the Policies and Procedures tab in the reporting portal. If families are receiving unemployment insurance, they do need to provide documentation of that because that income is considered countable. Also, proof of any other unearned income, such as veteran benefits, Social Security income, child or spousal support, is all listed on page 4 of the family application. So if they indicate that they're receiving one or more of those income sources, they do need to provide documentation of that. So as a reminder, all children do need to be entered through the online family qualification tool prior to submitting reports for state fiscal year 22. You may select new child for any children that are going to be brand new to your program for this upcoming fiscal year, and it will generate a new record for them. If you have children that will be continuing between fiscal years, so they are on the scholarship now and they're going to continue in July or August, we would like for you to duplicate their child qualification record. This maintains the child's name, date of birth, and enrollment date. It saves you a little bit of time because then at that point you're only required to update the family details and income, as we do require qualification on an annual basis. So now that we've gone through updates to the family qualification tool and just a reminder of some of our eligibility criteria, I'll now show you the tool and a few example children. Okay, so hopefully we can all see that. This is the scholarships reporting portal. It should be familiar to all of you. This is the homepage landing. Family applications for fiscal year 22 are available. They're on the policies and procedures tab for you after you log in to the portal. However, if you'd like to send a link to your family so that they can access it, they can access it here. It would just be azftfscholarships.org. And then under resources, you will see that we have our applications for this fiscal year as well as the ones for next fiscal year. So families can access this here without having to log in. You as the participant can access them here or simply by logging in and visiting the policies and procedures tab. But we will log into our profile. And again, this landing should look familiar to you all. It defaults to your reporting page, and then if you click over to the right here is where we have family qualification. And here's where you'll see your list of children that you currently have enrolled and also any children that you have enrolled for past years. We'll do a few qualification examples now. Again, if a child is going to be brand new to your program for this upcoming fiscal year, you'll just want to hit new child here. And you'll see the report time period is going to default to the next available for month. For many of you, that's May, as we've just submitted our April reports. May, however, is in fiscal year 2021. So if you plan on qualifying children for next fiscal year, you do want to make sure that you're selecting July or later because that updates the form that we'll use to actually qualify the child. So for this first child, we will say that they're going to start as of July. And you'll see that it actually updates this in the corner here to fiscal year 22 as well. So let's look at our first application. For our first applicant, we have Alexis Sanders. And her mom is Samantha, and then sister is Ava. Again, we'll want to make sure later that these names and relationships tie to whatever household size document the family has provided. For now, we'll keep scrolling. And as I also mentioned, important information that you're going to grab from page 1 of the application is the child's documented special need. If they have one, they'll just select it here. The zip code where they currently reside, and then the parent's email and phone number. So since I have all this information in front of me, I'll go ahead and enter it now. Documented special need is not applicable. And you'll see for things like email, phone number, date of birth, the fields are going to turn green as you enter acceptable information. If at any point you typo anything or it doesn't like a zip code or a date of birth, those fields will turn red. So far, so good. You'll notice I'm going to hold off on entering the name. With names, obviously, parents know the names and dates of birth of their children, but sometimes with these, we'll see names abbreviated. They use a nickname, they have a hyphenated last name, but they've only included one of the last names. So it's always best practice to pull name and date of birth directly from the lawful presence document that the family has provided. But for now, we'll keep scrolling through our application. Looking to page 2, mom has indicated that she's provided a lawful presence document for our applying child and that the date of birth meets our criteria. So again, we'll be sure to check that against the actual document that they've provided. And then for household size, we do let families know that there are 2 options to verify household size. In option 1, they can use their public assistance letter, and that will prove both income and household size. In option 2, they can provide tax returns, and then at that point, they would need to provide other proof of income. In this instance, mom has indicated that they receive public assistance, so we'll be on the lookout for that letter later. Just something to note here, we do ask for them to enter the information from their letter here, but again, this is a scenario where I would recommend actually pulling those numbers from the letter itself, just because again, people round or they abbreviate and it's not matching number for number against the actual document. And if we come during fiscal monitoring, we're going to reference the actual document as opposed to what the family has written on their application. Because mom has indicated that they received public assistance, it lets her know that she can actually skip to the parent declarations section, again, because the letter will prove both household size and income, so we don't need her to go through any additional income verification. So we'll go ahead and skip through this. And that takes us to the parent declarations. With these, you just want to make sure that the family is initialing in all the appropriate places, that they understand all of the different rules and criteria to accept a scholarship, including that they understand that there may be a copay involved. They have to agree to a certain attendance policy. Their scholarship is not guaranteed to continue past June 30th of next year. All of the information. On page 6 is your participant section where you can verify eligibility. Here you're just checking off, yes, I have a complete application, I have their income and household size documents, I verified legal residency and age, I inform the family of any co-payment if it's applicable, and you're just signing off based on the income that you've determined. Now moving to pages 7 to 9, this is an area where parents or guardians tend to have some issues. What we're looking for here is the child's name, whether or not they are a citizen or national of the US, and then the city, state, and country where they are born. Sometimes people put county here. We're looking for the country. Page 8 will actually only apply if the child has a qualified alien status or non-immigrant status. So if it doesn't apply, they can just skip through here. And on page 9 is the declaration. For this, we have sometimes parents or guardians will print the child's name and then sign, or print their own name and then sign. What we're actually looking for is the document that they've provided to prove the child's lawful presence. I think I mentioned earlier, probably about 90% of your children will use their state-issued birth certificate, but it could be a passport, a visa, something of that nature. They're just writing whatever that document is and signing off that what they've provided is true and accurate to the best of their knowledge. Page 10 is just a list of eligibility documents. Something I will point out though is we sometimes have family members get hung up on option 1 here, this driver's license option. We understand that these applying children are not going to have driver's licenses. However, this form is used in other applications statewide, so that's why it's listed there as an option. We don't want anybody to be confused though. We are not requiring that parents verify their lawful presence in the US. That's only a requirement for the child. We don't look at lawful presence or citizenship for any of our applying parents or guardians. It only applies to the applying children. So that's our family application. And we'll continue on to see what kind of supporting documents mom has attached. And it looks like for lawful presence, they have included Alexis's state-issued birth certificate. Hers happens to be issued by the state of Arizona. It's not a requirement that children be born in the state of Arizona. However, they do need to be residing in Arizona at the time of the application. So you can accept birth certificates from other states, or again, visas or passports that meet the eligibility criteria. With this, what we're looking for is that we have the correct spelling of the child's name and also their date of birth. So it looks like it's Alexis Sanders and her birth date is 10/2/2019. So I will go ahead and enter that. And similar to the other fields, if I enter a date of birth it likes, it'll turn green, letting me know that it's acceptable. Something to know as you're qualifying children for the new fiscal year, if they are new, so they won't have started yet at this point that you're qualifying them, we would recommend leaving this first date attended field blank. Obviously, you plan to have kids start on certain days, but that may not always be the case. So if you're not yet sure, if they haven't actually attended yet and you're qualifying them, we would recommend leaving this first date attended field blank. The record will save without it, and you can always add it when you're doing your monthly report for July or August, in August or September. The last thing you'll need to do at the top is assign the child a scholarship award, keeping in mind that once you assign the scholarship award, part-time or full-time, it cannot be changed unless you fill out the family award change notification and have the family sign that and submit it to VSUW. So once you assign a scholarship, that scholarship remains with that child until a time that you choose to change it to part-time or full-time from full-time or part-time. And at that point, we would need a parent signature in order to okay that change. But heading back to our application, that's all we need with this lawful presence document. So we'll keep moving on. For proof of household size, mom did indicate that the family was receiving public assistance. In this instance, it looks like the family is receiving access. So this is an example of what an access letter may look like. These do come in many forms, specifically with access. There are different formats, but what you're looking for basically is your customer name, because it's likely going to be your applying mom or dad or parent or guardian, and the letter date. In this instance, the letter was issued on February 8th, 2021. That's within the last 12 months of our fiscal year start date of July, so we are good to go. And we have mom as our customer. And with these letters, specifically again with access, you need to make sure that you're seeing a decision on the letter, be it approved, denied, or renewed. Sometimes we'll see application summaries where DES has simply sent the family a summary of the information that they told them. That doesn't mean that that information has been reviewed or verified. In order to ensure that we have an actual acceptable letter, it does need to explicitly say their application was approved, denied, or renewed. So we will look for that as we scroll through this letter. And here you'll see it does say that their medical assistance renewal has been approved and that they renewed the medical assistance for Alexis, our applying child, and then Ava, her sibling. So that's great. So since we have mom on here, Ava and Alexis, and that ties to mom, Ava, and Alexis, that was written on page 1 of the family application, that takes care of that. Our documents match up. We don't have to ask any other questions. For public assistance letters, they tend to be anywhere between like 8 and 20 pages long. This particular letter is 11 pages long. You do want to make sure that you have all pages. For nutrition assistance letters, the eligibility criteria is all on one page and they determine eligibility as a family. For access, they do go through each individual's access application. But what you're looking for is a monthly gross income. And DES here basically provides an explanation of how they determined that the family was eligible for benefits, and that's where we will grab our monthly gross income number from. So our first applicant is Ava. It goes through her income breakdown. She doesn't have any income of her own, but they determined her eligibility using mom's income for January. Based on that gross income of $2,472.93 and their household size of 3, they were considered eligible for this access benefit. The letter will now provide the same breakdown for Alexis. Again, Alexis doesn't have any income of her own, but they used mom's income from work to determine that she was eligible for access. And again, you'll see that same table with the same income. Their monthly gross income is $2,472.93, and they are a household size of 3. When you're pulling income from these letters, do be sure that you're looking for monthly gross income. We don't want the net income, and we don't want the income standard. Also, for nutrition assistance, sometimes people pull in like their monthly benefit amount, their SNAP benefit amount. That's the amount of money that they're receiving in SNAP benefits, not their actual income. So do make sure that you're pulling in the appropriate amount. So for this, we'll go ahead and enter it into the tool. Mom is Samantha. She is a parent. And for her proof of income, she's provided her public assistance letter. As you make different selections for income type, these pop-ups will appear, just providing you with reminders. For this one, it's letting you know if you have a 2-parent household receiving public assistance, only list that monthly income under 1 parent because you obviously don't want to double count it. It'll default the pay frequency to monthly, and the income that we needed was $2,472.93. It determines her monthly average and then multiplies that out by 12 to give you a gross number. Also on the letter was Ava. And she is Alexis's sibling. Because she's a sibling, we're not going to ask for income. However, we do need to know how she relates to the home. In this instance, she is a dependent listed on mom's public assistance letter. So you'll see based on that household size of 3 and the income of $29,675, this child is going to meet our eligibility criteria. I simply check the qualification verification stating that everything that I've entered here is true to the best of my knowledge, and I will save child details. Now Alexis appears here, available to report for the next fiscal year. So that's an example of how you would qualify a family receiving public assistance and also a new child. Going back to that application, there are additional pages in this letter, but they're just notices from DES. Again, it's good to have, though, all pages of the letter if you can. For our next child, we will qualify Henry. As you can see here, Henry's actually currently enrolled with us. So if I'm going to requalify this family for the next fiscal year, I will want to duplicate his child record as opposed to hitting new child. It's important that you do this because it will maintain his application information, and for us on our end, it maintains his first date attended so that we're able to track his participation in the program across multiple fiscal years. So to do this, I'll just click on the stacked paper icon and you'll see it pops up, duplicate child. When I select this, a pop-up is going to appear asking if I'm sure I want to duplicate it and letting me know that it's going to pull forward some information, but that I'll have to enter other information on my own. I'll just select OK. And you'll see it's created a new record for him. For anybody that you're duplicating, it's going to default that start month to July. Again, if you're a 10-month program or someone who's not going to start until August or September, you can change that by editing the record. To do that, you'll click on the pencil and paper icon, and you can change that drop down to whatever you need to. You'll see that it remains fiscal year 2022. You'll also see that we've pulled forward his first date attended and that I can't edit that information. I also can't edit his name or date of birth. It's going to pull forward any selections that you made last year for email, phone number, designated special need, but you can edit that. So what we'll do is we'll pull up his application. And we have Henry. His date of birth is January 6, 2017. We'll check that against the lawful presence document. And it looks like we have mom, dad, a sister and a cousin in the home, we will check that against whatever household size document they've provided. Special needs still says not applicable. And then we will just double check that our zip code, email, and phone number have not changed. Zip code and phone number are the same, but it looks like we did have a change to email, so I can edit this if I need to. If you're requalifying your children and you do notice a typo in name or date of birth, just reach out to us and we can update that for you. You as the participant, though, cannot change the name or date of birth here on a duplicated record. Again, you're going to assign a scholarship award, either full-time or part-time, keeping in mind that once you make that selection, you can only change it with a family award change notification. Going back to our application, we'll scroll to the next page. The family has indicated that they did provide a lawful presence document, so we will look for that later. If you have children continuing, obviously, like their birth certificate's probably not changing, so you can definitely make a copy of that from last year and keep it in their new year's file as opposed to having them resubmitted again. If they used a different sort of document like a visa or a passport and that is expired, you do want to make sure that you're collecting an updated one. However, if it's a state issued birth certificate, there's likely not any changes. You can definitely use the one that you already have on file, just move it to this new year's application. For household size, it looks like the family has indicated that they've provided their tax records to verify household size. That said, they do need to complete pages 3 and 4 of the application where we ask about income information. You'll see here that they just marked that they provided their 2020 tax return. If you have any families that have a tax return but want to also submit amendments, they would need to check the second box that says they've provided the tax return but they have changes, and mark whatever document they've provided that illustrate those changes, be it a birth certificate for a child born after the tax year, a custody agreement in instances of divorce, a marriage certificate if they're newly married, or any foster care or adoption paperwork for children new to the home. So moving to page 3. Page 3 is all about earned income, so our pay stubs, self-employment ledgers, employer letters, anything of that nature. In this instance, it looks like one of our parents is employed and that they have provided one current consecutive month worth of pay stubs, so we will look out for that documentation later. Moving down, it looks like the second parent in the home, though, is unemployed, so at that point, they should have filled out a no income declaration form. You can provide this to them, and it does mention that if they have any unearned income, like unemployment insurance, veteran benefits, Social Security income, anything of that nature, they need to provide documentation of that, and that they should look at page 4 of this application for all of those documents. On page 4, here are our unearned income options. If your families are applying with tax returns and they need to provide other proof of income, everybody must fill out that page, even if it's just checking, I do not receive any unearned income. We do need to see that checked. If they do receive unearned income, we need them to mark which option they have and provide documentation of that option. So it looks like in this instance, they do have Social Security income, so we will be looking for that later as well. Moving on, we have our parent declarations. Again, just keep in mind, parents need to initial every single one of these and make sure that they understand all of the criteria involved with accepting a scholarship. Page 6 is for your use to make sure that you have verified eligibility and have all of your required documents on file. And then pages 7 to 9, as we mentioned earlier, are our statement of lawful presence. They're going to put the child's full name and the city, state, and country where they were born and indicate whether or not that child is a national or citizen of the US. Page 8 may only apply in some instances. And page 9, they need to let us know what document they've provided and sign off that the document is true and accurate to the best of their knowledge. And again, page 10 is just a list of all acceptable documents, keeping in mind that the majority of your children will provide a state-issued birth certificate, and there's no lawful presence requirement for parents. It only applies to the child. So that's our application. We'll keep going. Again, if it's a continuing child, you may already have their lawful presence document as long as it's not expired in any way for visas or passports. You can still use it. We will just double check to make sure that when we entered this child last year, we didn't make any mistakes. So we have Henry McGovern, and his birth date is January 6, 2017. If I look here, it's Henry McGovern, 1/6/2017. So that's great. We can move on. We'll now look to start adding our family members. This family has provided their 2020 tax return to verify their household size. It looks like we have dad and mom filing jointly, as well as Henry, our applying child here, listed as a dependent, so that's great. Alice, his sister, and Robert, his cousin. So our 5 members here on the tax return also match page 1 of our application, so we don't need to ask any further questions to add or subtract members from the household. We'll just use this tax document here. Since we have our dependents, Henry is our applying child, Alice and Robert are also dependents. We'll go ahead and add them now. You can add family members to the tool in any order that you'd like. I believe once you save, it just puts everybody in alphabetical order, so keep that in mind. We'll add Alice first. She is a sibling, and she counts because she's a dependent listed on mom and dad's taxes. Next, we have Robert. He is not a sibling, he's a cousin, so general criteria, we'll just call him an additional family member. He's not a head of household, but he's a tax dependent, so we'll select additional family member, doesn't claim child on taxes. However, he counts in the home because he is a dependent listed on our applying parents' tax returns. Going back to our application, that's all we need the tax return for, is just our family members. We're not going to pull any income information from here. In this case, the family gave you both pages of their return. You really only need page 1, but people sometimes give us more documents than we need. So if you have it, you can keep it in the folder, but you really only need page 1 because we just want our applying family or family members that are filing taxes as well as their dependents. As we mentioned earlier, taxes are not going to verify income, so we need other proof of income. This particular family indicated that they were employed and also unemployed. Our employed parent has provided us with his pay stubs. With these, for our new fiscal year, if you're going to begin qualifying children now, income should not be any older than April. So for this check, it's April 9th. That's great. Anything earlier is probably too old to use for the fiscal year starting in July. If you're in a scenario where you're qualifying maybe more children than you have spots for and you end up with a wait list, if you pull children off of that wait list at a later date, do make sure that you're getting updated income information from mom and dad. We would typically say for later in the year, we wouldn't want any income older than 6 weeks prior to that application date. But if it's going to be for the start of this new fiscal year, April or later will work fine, keeping in mind that any pay stubs or any sort of income documentation does have to be consecutive and cover, for pay stubs, at least 1 month's worth. So quickly checking these stubs. His first check date is April 9th for a period that ran from March 21st to April 3rd. If I look at a calendar, that's Sunday of 1 week and it runs through the following Saturday. So 2 weeks. That is pretty indicative of a biweekly pay schedule. We do have sometimes people get confused about biweekly and twice per month, thinking that they're interchangeable. They're not. Biweekly is 26 pay periods annually, and twice per month is only 24. So if you're questioning whether a parent is biweekly or twice per month, we definitely recommend going with biweekly. It's better to overstate their income than understate it. And if it's putting the family over the cutoff, you can always submit those pay stubs to us and we're happy to look at them. But the majority of people are paid on a biweekly pay schedule, and it's always better, again, to overstate that income as opposed to understating it. As we look at these pay stubs, what we're looking for is dad's gross income. And you'll see here that it's $1,911 for this first pay period. However, you do want to check The pay descriptions with pay stubs, we recommend finding that largest number first and then working backwards to subtract the few things that we may not count. The things that we will not count are overtime, bonuses, per diem, and then any COVID-19 hazard pay. Everything else, though, your holiday, bereavement, sick time, PTO, shift differentials, all counts in the income. The only things that we will exclude are overtime, bonuses, per diem, and again, hazard pay. So if I look at the stub, the gross income is that $1,911 amount. However, $351 is credited to overtime, and that is one of the few things we will not count. So when I'm entering his income into the tool, I will make sure to exclude that $351 and only count $1,560. That's one pay stub. Again, he's paid biweekly, so that means we need two. So I'll scroll to our next one, making sure that they are consecutive. So that last pay period ended on April 3rd. This new one starts on April 4th. So that tells me they're consecutive. Our check date for the first one was April 9th, and this one is the 23rd. If I look at a calendar, again, that's every other Friday, so that's an indicator that he is paid bi-weekly, and so that's the frequency I will select when I enter him into the tool. Looking at the pay stub, his gross income is $1,560. $1,404 is for regular time, and then he also has $156 credited as holiday. Holiday is one of those pay descriptions that we will count. So when I enter him into the tool, I'm not going to subtract anything here. Again, holiday, PTO, sick, shift differentials, bereavement, that all counts. The only thing I'm not going to count is overtime, bonuses, or per diem. So I'll go ahead and enter dad here. He is a parent. And because he's a parent, we're asking for his income information. In this case, he provided pay stubs. This is just letting you know the pay descriptions that we won't count, but basically everything else does. The pay frequency is biweekly. Because it's biweekly, two boxes will appear for there are two consecutive checks. And the amount from both was $1,560. Again, the tool is going to determine an average and a gross income for him. Our final household member is mom, and on the application, she indicated that she was unemployed. So what I'm looking for is a no income declaration form. It's a one-page form that you can print for the family from your policies and procedures tab. They're just putting their name, the last income that they received, and the date of that last income. If you have parents who are disabled, they've never worked, they've always been a stay-at-home parent, anything like that, they can write that there and then just put NA for the last date that they received income. But if they were recently employed, we do want to know that company name and then also the date of around the time they received their last income. Also on the application, mom indicated that there was Social Security income in the home, so we will need that letter from the Social Security Administration. So we will go ahead and scroll down, and conveniently it's here. Our beneficiary's name is Vanessa, and the amount that she is getting monthly is $630. So we will include this income into the qualification tool. In this instance, mom is the recipient of the Social Security income. Sometimes we see that this is credited to children in the home. If that's the case, we still do count it. You'll notice though that children are not going to be prompted to enter income. So if you have like child support credited to a child or Social Security income, anything of that nature, you can just list it under one of the parents or guardians in the home. So we will add our family member. We have mom. She is a parent, so it will ask for her income information, even if in this instance, she doesn't have any. If that's the case, we will just select no earned income. Again, you'll get another pop-up, but it's going to tell you monthly and zero. So she doesn't have any earned income. However, to the right over here is where you will enter that Social Security benefit. So there are several columns that cover any kind of unearned income option, be it child support or spousal support, tribal income, Social Security. You can put things like VA benefits, or child or retirement payments here if you have grandparents that are the heads of household in this other income area, should you need it. In this instance, we have Social Security income. It's paid monthly, and that amount is $630. If I scroll back to the left, we now have everybody entered: Henry, his sister, his cousin, and mom and dad, based on that household size of 5 and their income of $48,120. This family is going to meet eligibility criteria. So I can just update the child details here. And now I have 2 children qualified for the new fiscal year. So that's what the updated tool looks like, and that's an example of a few qualification scenarios. Again, the tool is available to you now on that family qualification tab, and you can qualify children for as late as August of 2021. Heading back to our presentation. Some frequently asked questions that we get as it relates to family qualification. Probably number one is parent A is applying for the scholarship, but parent B was the one to claim the child on taxes. They are no longer together. Whose income should I count? Both parents should submit taxes and proof of income, and we will count their entire incomes, and both will count in the home unless these parents now have a custody agreement that clearly names one of them as the primary custodial parent with the majority of the parenting time. If they do have a divorce decree or a custody agreement that lays this out for you, we would only count that primary parent. However, if there's any child support being paid by the other parent to the primary parent, we would count that as countable income. So if your families were together and are now separated and they have split children across tax returns, be it the applying child or the applying child siblings, both parents are going to count and will ask for both of their tax returns and both of their entire incomes unless they have a formal sort of custody agreement that is naming one of them as the primary parent. And if that's the case and there's child support ordered, we'll count that child support income as income. Another question: additional family members are listed on the family application that are not included on the applying parent's taxes or public assistance letter. Do I count these family members? As I mentioned earlier, probably step one of all of your eligibility determinations is to make sure that page 1 of that family application matches the household size document. If it doesn't, then they need to provide amendments, either proving why we need to add somebody to the home or why they need to be subtracted. So unless the additional family member is a biological parent, we'll always count them living in the same home, or if they share a different biological child in common with the applying parent as verified by that other child's birth certificate, we're not going to count them. Other additions are only going to be allowed with appropriate documentation, be it a marriage certificate, adoption paperwork, anything of that nature. More frequently asked questions: the applying parent has not yet ordered a copy of their child's state-issued birth certificate. Can I still enroll the child? Unfortunately, no. This is a question that we do get a lot of the time. This is like mom or dad's first experience with school, so they haven't needed that state-issued birth certificate yet, so they haven't ordered it yet, and now Vital Records is taking forever. We understand it's a common thing that happens, but you should not be adding any children to your scholarships list until you have a complete file for them. And that complete file does unfortunately need to include a lawful presence document. If they're providing a state-issued birth certificate, it does have to be that version. We cannot take like a hospital birth certificate or social security cards like in the interim. It does have to be one of those acceptable documents as listed on page 10. Another question: this pay stub has a lot of line items. Which pay description should I count? Basically everything. Keeping in mind eligibility is based on gross income. You'll want to look for the gross total or the largest amount on that pay stub and then work backwards to subtract only 4 pay descriptions listed as overtime, bonus, per diem, or hazard pay related to COVID-19. Essentially everything else is going to count. If you have any questions about what you should or shouldn't count from a pay stub, Our fiscal monitoring team is always happy to look at those, and we would recommend, especially if you're unsure, to send those in to us prior to actually awarding the scholarship. If you have any additional questions, you can visit the Training Resources section under the Policies and Procedures tab in the Scholarships Reporting Portal, and you can also submit inquiries to us via the Inquiries section on the Family Qualification tab. Which takes us to our next slide. This is available to you on Family Qualification. Normally, when you click here, you'll see your list of children that you either have enrolled or qualified for next fiscal year. Under this tab is a sub-tab labeled Inquiries. If you click there, basically an email template will pop up. Here you can write whatever message you need, like, hey, please look at this pay stub, I need help, and then attach it, and it will go directly to our fiscal monitoring team. One of those team members will respond, and then you'll have that response from us. This is nice because it actually will keep any messages that you have sent, as well as our responses to those messages, in a log on this same tab so that you can reference it at any point in time to know what you asked and also what we said. It's also important because messages containing personally identifiable information like a name, a date of birth, a social security number, as well as any sensitive documents like taxes, passports, public assistance letters, should not be sent via email or fax. Our portal is secure and encrypted, so working here is the most secure method for maintaining the privacy of all of your qualifying families. So just keeping that in mind, it is best to submit these documents to us via the reporting portal, as opposed to email or fax. To ensure that you get any email communications from us, make sure that you opt into notifications on your account settings tab. And I will quickly show you. So again, this is your family qualification tab. All of the children that you have qualified are here. If you click though on inquiries, it opens up this email template basically where you can send us messages. Those messages are saved to the log down here, as well as any responses that our fiscal monitoring team sends to you. To ensure that you receive those responses, you will want to, on your account settings tab here, where your name and email are listed, opt in to family qualification. At that point, you can also opt into any of our other categories like fiscal monitoring or reporting, just to make sure you're included on everything. And then finally, something to point out with the portal, this is our policies and procedures tab. Applications for this fiscal year and next fiscal year are here, as well as all of our training resources. Eventually, once we wrap up these sessions, we'll post the PowerPoint presentation for this training here so that you can reference back to it. But there's also several FAQ and example documents here as well. Our last section, so state fiscal year 22, important dates to keep in mind. The new state fiscal year is going to begin on July 1st, 2021. Please ensure that your scholarships reporting portal and FTF extranet contact information are up to date so that you receive all of our communications as well as communications from First Things First in a timely manner. A reoccurring question that we've been getting a lot is, when will I know my allocation number for state fiscal year 22? That information does come from the scholarships team at First Things First. They will post allocation awards to the extranet and also send an email communication to whoever you have as the extranet contact by early June. Once that information is announced, Valley of the Sun United Way will be able to send communications in regards to how to register for participant training and also how to complete your renewal application for the new state fiscal year. With allocations going out in early June, we expect to be able to send training invites by June 14th. Training will be done entirely via Zoom. We'll have several sessions available in English and Spanish for you to register for. So expect an email on or around the 14th with instructions on how to register to attend. Also, around that same time, we will open the scholarships renewal window on the reporting portal. You'll be prompted to renew automatically when you log in. When you do that, you'll just complete that application. It shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes, especially if all you're having to do is verify that your COL is still current, your W-9 is still current, your banking preferences are still current. It shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes. The only other thing you'll have to do at that point is sign your state fiscal year 22 participant agreement. This is sent via DocuSign. However, if you would like a paper copy of the contract, we can email that Word document version over to you should you need to make any edits via like your board or your superintendent or anything of that nature. So again, these are your important dates to keep in mind. Be on the lookout for your allocation around that first week of June. And then following that notice, you should receive invitations to participate in annual participant training, as well as complete your renewal for the new fiscal year. So that takes us to the end of our presentation. I know we are a couple minutes over time. However, myself, Julio, and Maria will stay on the line to answer any questions that you may have. This slide here just has our contact information if questions should come up later. But if you don't have any questions, feel free to disconnect.